Hi, and welcome to the Formulator's Corner. My name is Jeff Tuttle, and I'm happy to be with you today. We're going to talk about a topic that I really like, and especially as we get older, something that's really important for most of us adults and athletes, for a lot of different people. And we're going to talk a little about something that I have learned even more recently about some of the additional benefits of our product called GO NitriMax. So I'm going to jump right in and share my screen with you, and let's just talk about GO NitriMax. And we're going to start by talking about how nitric oxide not only produces cardiovascular benefits, however, it also produces stem cells, which is something fairly new, and most people don't even talk about the benefits that nitric oxide has. So what GO NitriMax is, it is a combination of amino acids, arginine, L-citrulline, a couple of other amino acids, branched chain amino acids. And what they do is they supercharge the production of nitric oxide in the body. And what that does, the result, it has many benefits. We're going to go through some of those things today and talk a little bit about some of those benefits. So why is nitric oxide important? It's basically a signaling molecule in the body. What it does, it helps with vasodilation. In other words, helps improve blood flow. It also helps with mitochondrial efficiency, basically helping to increase energy in the body, something I think most of us could use a little extra of, especially as we get older. And the last one is stem cell activation, which is something new that we're talking about a little more recently. It helps improve, repair, and regenerate their cells. So let's talk a little about why we should be concerned about nitric oxide in our diet and our body. First of all, as we get older, nitric oxide is pretty prevalent, and it's really easy to build muscle and stay pretty healthy when we're younger. But as we get older, our bodies tend to produce less nitric oxide. You can see that, in the mid 40s, begins to drop off pretty precipitously. And we'll look at some of the side effects of that decrease in nitric oxide. First of all, why is it important? Nitric oxide, as I mentioned, is a critical signaling molecule. And we're going to talk first about vasodilation and the improving of blood flow. First of all, this is a cross-section of some veins. And basically what it shows, in normal blood flow, the vein is open. With vasodilation, what it does is it opens up the veins. And many times we hear about constricted veins or lack of blood flow. What nitric oxide does is it helps with vasodilation, opens up and gives us more blood flow. And one of the problems, especially things like diabetes and other types of cardiovascular disease, often cause vasoconstriction. So you get less blood flow, and with less blood flow comes a lot of problems. So how does it work? First of all, it does direct vasodilation. In other words, just dilates the veins, improves blood flow to various parts of the body. That's one of the reasons why they say it helps with sexual function in both men and women, because blood flow, we know, is critical. And we know that in many cases, people with things like erectile dysfunction or other problems can be caused by lack of blood flow. In fact, most cases of erectile dysfunction are directly attributed to lack of blood flow. So that's the first one. Second one is indirect vasodilation, which basically inhibits some of the chemicals in our body that cause vasoconstriction. The third one is antithrombotic effect. Basically, it inhibits the adhesion of these blood platelets to the vascular endothelium. In other words, it stops platelets from sticking on the walls of our blood cells, of our blood vessels. And that way, when it's not sticky, we have an open pipeline for our blood to be able to flow. And the fourth one is it has anti-inflammatory properties. Inhibits the adhesion of leukocytes to the endothelium. So in other words, it just helps the body with vascular function in many ways, okay? The second thing about nitric oxide we talk less about is mitochondrial efficiency. Basically, it helps increase energy in the body. Let's look at how that works. First of all, nitric oxide improves the energy source of our cells. It produces more ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which is sustained energy. that can also result in reduced fatigue and improved endurance. So great for athletes, great for any of us as we get older. We need more endurance, more energy. It also helps improve oxygen and nutrient delivery. So you can see in the mitochondria, which is basically the powerhouse of the cell, because it helps with the mitochondria function, it can help with things like energy conversion, heat production in the body. And you know what's heat production? Heat production in the body is the burning of calories. So regulation of immunity, and it also helps with cellular proliferation. The third part, and we're going to focus a little more on that tonight, is stem cell activation. What do stem cells do? Well, you know, we've heard a lot about people going getting stem cell injections and for repairing of tissue and regeneration of tissue. Great technology that they're using with regeneration of even joints and different parts of the body with stem cell injections. Well, let's talk a little bit about what stem cells do. First of all, stem cells are important in almost every function of our body. For our brain, they help with nerve cells. For intestines, they help with enterocytes, and those are, you know, the intestinal cells. Heart, cardiac cells, again, not only the function of vasodilation, but helps with producing cardio stem cells, or heart, basically heart cells. Osteocytes for bones, and hepatocytes for the liver, and nerve cells for the brain. So a lot of functions that we have with stem cells in our body. And you can see that most of them are typically, the injection type are done with typically osteocytes and with helping with joints and those kinds of things. So let's look at what happens with our stem cells as we get older. When we're young, newborns, look at how many stem cells they produce, okay? They produce a lot of stem cells. As we get older, teenagers, then when we reach up in our 80s, that, you know, we're producing very few stem cells. And what happens? It slows down our healing. You know, when you're young, you get a cut on your hand, it heals very quickly. As we get older, our healing, our body's ability to heal itself and do cell repair becomes slower and slower. So those stem cells are very important, and helping to increase the proliferation of stem cells is very important. So let's talk about the role of stem cells in anti-aging and in recovery. First of all, stem cells help repair damaged tissues, muscles, skin, organs. That's why they're doing stem cell injections. Nitric oxide, what the nitric oxide, which is NO, helps mobilize stem cells where they're needed most. In other words, they go to the body, part of the body where they're needed most. They're really kind of strange cells because they could turn into various types of cells in the body. And that's why they're called stem cells. They also have a combined effect of helping to slow aging at a cellular level, but they also accelerate post-workout recovery. So having those stem cells and having the nitric oxide can actually help accelerate post-workout recovery. We get better. You're not sore for a long time after you work out. And then also improving cognitive function, very important. So why is nitric oxide important? We've talked about it being those three functions: vasodilation, mitochondrial efficiency, and stem cell activation. Well, GO NitriMax leverages nitric oxide plus stem cell activation for maximum performance. Talk a little bit more about other ingredients in our GO NitriMax. We also have antioxidants and branched chain amino acids. These help protect the body and help with mental concentration, faster muscle recovery, and help improve endurance and strength. So important, especially many of you may have heard of talked about the branched chain amino acid and the antioxidants, which also protect us at a cellular level. So there are sources of nitric oxide, and let's look at those. What we use is a combination of L-arginine and L-citrulline, about 3 to 6 grams a day. Our product contains about 5 grams of the L-arginine, L-citrulline combination. We feel like that's the sweet spot for the amount of L-arginine, citrulline per dosage. If you get too much L-arginine, L-citrulline, you can get some gastric distress, stomach ache, those kinds of things, maybe even some diarrhea if you take a whole lot of it. And I've had people that take 5 packs a day and have not experience that. However, if you get too much, that's the one side effect that you may look at with using an L-arginine and L-citrulline combination. Another source is nitrates in beets. So you can eat raw beets. You could eat two beets a day, or you could drink beet juice, which is about a half a liter. In other words, a pint of beet juice. But that needs to be a concentrated beet juice, or you could take 5 to 6 grams of beet powder. Now, most beet powder comes in capsules, and that would be, so to get 5 grams, you'd have to take at least 10 to 12 capsules a day per dosage just to get that amount, assuming that the product is completely 100% beetroot. So nitrates for me is not as great a source of the beetroots, is not a great source of nitrates, and nitrates for me is not the best source to produce nitric oxide. However, you'll probably hear about it, how beets are great for your heart. Certainly they are. So eat beets and on a daily basis, and to do it a continued source of nitric oxide. We want to have that every single day. So beets for me is not my way of choice to produce nitric oxide in my body. Now, there's been a lot of talk recently about cocoa. Cocoa also has flavonols, and these compounds that are naturally found, especially in dark chocolate, that needs to be like at least 85% cocoa, you need about 20 to 30 grams a day. And, or you can take 2 to 3 tablespoons of cocoa. Now, most of us probably, although cocoa is a good source of a precursor to nitric oxide, probably not very practical. In fact, I saw a recommendation to take 2 tablespoons twice a day for nitric oxide, and it's going to be something that's a little bit more difficult to maintain on a regular basis. So really my choice, why we went with arginine and citrulline, it's the easiest, cleanest version and a way to get a consistent dose, because we need that every single day. Okay, GO NitriMax truly is your best source for nitric oxide production. So why should we use GO NitriMax? First of all, in older adults, supporting those stem cells. Remember, they tend to drop off very quickly as we get older. That's important. It helps support stem cell vitality. So we know that when we exercise, our body releases stem cells. This is in addition to that. So athletes, for performance and recovery, the GO NitriMax is great for that. I love to use it pre-workout, because what is it? You get that vasodilation, get those nutrients throughout the body. And to me, that's very important part of any kind of athletic performance. And why do we go work out? We go work out so we can stay fit, so we can have optimum energy. And so having every little tool, such as the GO NitriMax, is helpful in helping us not only have our best exercise, our best performance, but also best recovery after that. And as I mentioned also, sexual performance, it's important for that also, especially as we get older. Okay, people that are concerned about cardiovascular health, most of the products that focus on arginine and on citrulline, or one of those types, are really focused on cardiovascular health. And you'll see products available on the market that are focused on that. We believe that our product has a much broader focus. It has many other functions. So other people, young people, biohackers, if you're a young person looking for optimized cellular health and want to stay young forever, great in our teens and late teens, 20s, 30s for optimizing cellular health. And really anyone looking for more energy and longevity. It's great to take before workout, like I mentioned. You can take it at night for increased HGH production, which is human growth hormone, helps keep us young. Also, people say they tend to sleep better if they'll drink it 30 minutes before they go to bed. I love it before a workout or anytime during the day. The last part I just want to do is just a quick summary about GO NitriMax. First of all, the number one function is it supports cardiovascular health. Now, we know that the number one killer of people in the U.S. is cardiovascular disease. So we want to support that vasodilation. We want to support a healthy cardiovascular system. We don't want those platelets sticking on our veins and arteries. We want to have a healthy cardiovascular system. The second thing is It helps decrease recovery after workout, so less soreness. We use a special citrulline called citrulline malate, which has been shown to help decrease the time to recover after workout. As I mentioned, supports healthy sexual performance due to its vasodilation and increased circulation. Really helpful for people with diabetes who tend to have cardiovascular and circulatory issues. Promotes natural nitric oxide production, as I mentioned. That's the function of this whole thing. May help decrease belly fat. Why? It helps with energy production, helps with, as I mentioned earlier, about the helping create heat in the body. In other words, thermogenesis. Helps us maintain healthy blood sugar levels. And it also can help increase energy levels. But the number one thing I want to just, that most people aren't aware of, is that it can help release stem cells in the body. So if you're ready to boost your stem cells and your physical performance, youth, and energy, you can look up more information about our GO NitriMax on www.liveinternational.com.